friend, Matt Young. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, I'm not doing too bad. How are you guys doing?
I'm great. So for those who aren't familiar, and how could you not be, you are an editor, reporter, CTV Saskatoon. You do play-by-play for dang near every sport, Matt. You're busy.
Yeah, I love being in a play-by-play booth, doing Canada West football with either the Rams, the Saskatchewan Huskies, some WHL games on Access with the Regina Pats. And then, of course, I've been doing Saskatoon Hilltops play-by-play for about 12, 14 years now. In fact, I remember becoming play-by-play for the Hilltops when they started doing streaming for the very first time. It was way back in 2014. It was one camera. It was no score bug. It was a little bit different back then. It's got a lot better. So have sort of seen the ebb and flow of streaming and how it's sort of moved along technology-wise over the last few years. But I just love calling games. I love sports, love college sports and junior sports. And this time of year, my calendar starts to fill up. It's always a good time, and I really, really enjoy it. So, let's get it going on the gridiron. Hilltops, Huskies, Rams, doesn't matter. I'm there for it.
Oh, let's go. Well, let's start with where you were most recently. Saskatoon Hilltops game last week, 28-22 loss to Edmonton at home. I don't think anybody was calling that one. You were up in the broadcast booth. What stood out to you most about that game, Matt?
Yeah, it's interesting because a little story, a little background here. So everybody's always heard, and sometimes you hear about it in the States, of that high school or college football team that hasn't beaten their crosstown rival in 20 years. And they finally do it, and it kind of makes the news and makes national news sometimes. And I thought, this was just about on that level. I've been doing play-by-play for the Hilltops since 2014, 2015, 10, 12 years. And I couldn't remember the last time the Edmonton Wildcats came into Saskatoon and beat the Saskatoon Hilltops. And I remember thinking to myself, the Wildcats had lost that previous game against Regina by 55 points. The Saskatoon Hilltops are the defending national champions. And they're rolling into Saskatoon, a confident Hilltops team that the Hilltops had not lost to since 2009. I mean, you're going back to when Instagram wasn't even around yet. And so, to me, as a play-by-play guy, you're talking to the coaches before the game. You're getting some interesting storylines in that. And I was up in the booth and I thought, I think this Edmonton team is better than what they showed against Regina. They got some pieces, Marcos Saltero, Jacob St. Hilaire, but I didn't think that they would have the horses to beat the Saskatoon Hilltops. But I expected a better than 55-1 performance than what they had against Regina. And Hilltops go up 14-0, and you kind of think, here we go, the route is on. And boy, that Edmonton team, they clawed back like cougars and tigers and lions all in one. I mean, if you ever get a cat in a corner, they'll fight. And they fought hard. They put together, I think it was a 7 or 8 minute drive in the second quarter, got a touchdown on the board. And then the third quarter, they got another touchdown and took the lead. And you start to see the legs wobbling a bit on the Hilltops. And this is kind of an interesting play-by-play lesson, because when you're doing play-by-play, and it doesn't matter if it's at the college or junior or WHL or CHL or NHL level, you kind of want to, when there's a historic moment happening, you kind of want to have that call ready to go. And I remember with about 5 or 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I remember grabbing an index card and thinking, we might see something here. And I started writing down a few phrases that I thought, what kind of captures this moment if the Edmonton Wildcats, coming off a 55-point loss, 17 years since they've won in Saskatoon. A lot of these players, some of them might not have even been alive, and they have a chance to do what I would say is a historic upset. And if you watch the final play, I came up with it. The Cats came back the very next game, and Edmonton get ready to roar. And it really kind of captured the moment. And I think for the Edmonton Wildcats, boy, that's such a huge lift for that program. And you'll see it on X if you look. Dustin Nielsen, play-by-play guy for TSN, he tweeted me. He said, "Great call." And I remember thinking this was a really historic moment. And congratulations to the Edmonton Wildcats. To be there in the booth for that, you're not there that often for a lot of those kind of interesting things. That was a good one. Now, make no mistake, The Saskatoon Hilltops, they're going to retool. You're not 24-time national champs for nothing. And anybody who's been in a high school or college or pro practice team, I expect that there might be a few more push-ups, might be a few more wind sprints, and they're going to right the ship. But that game really showed, at any level of football, any given Sunday, something can happen. And it was just interesting to see. It was a great football game. It was back and forth. Hilltops don't often throw 3 interceptions, don't often give up 100 yards in penalties. And you saw the score go the way it is. And hey, we got some great parity in the PFC this year. Thunder too are right there as well. It's going to be fun the rest of the way.
So a couple of follow-ups to that. First of all, what did you land on when it came to that moment at the end of the game? What was the phrase that you landed on the index card?
Well, I remembered because I thought the interesting thing is I hadn't had anything written down because honestly, I was thinking that just the likelihood of Edmonton coming away with a victory was so small. And I ended up writing down, Edmonton, get ready to roar. The Cats came back the very next game. They defeated the national champions, the Saskatoon Hilltops. And then I just kind of let the fans and sort of the team players celebrating kind of take the rest of it. And it's something that I'm going to remember for a long time. The Cats came back the very next day. Well, they came back the very next game in this case and pulled off a mammoth upset. Hilltops will be back. That's a good team. But it just goes to show a little bit about how, you kind of got to pay attention and have everything ready because you never know what can happen on any given Sunday in football. And I don't think it matters what level it is. That was an interesting football game.
You mentioned the interceptions for the Hilltops. You mentioned the fact that they gave up 28 points. So what do you think they are going to retool as they get ready for their next opponent?
Well, the Hilltops are an interesting squad this year. They got most of their offensive line back, but if you look at that game, they were put into situations where they were forced to pass the ball and move down the field quickly. And I think Griffin Sander and company struggled with that a little bit. Some timing was off with some receivers, and a couple of those interceptions were in the end zone. So I think if you're the Hilltops, you're probably going to try and really make sure that things are crisp and smooth, and your timing with receivers is bang on in practice. They got some great guys, Luke Bednarik, and they've got Talon Coquet, they've got Charles Sawe. But the Hilltops lost a few guys at receivers. They're young this year. There is no David Boyd Jr. David Collins is gone. Isaiah Valteruten is gone. So there's a little bit of having to kind of retool and get that game going. I think they'll do that. Tom Sargent is a fantastic coach. They got a great offensive coordinator and great receivers coach. And no doubt it's going to be intense, and I expect quite cerebral in practice this week for the Saskatoon Hilltops. They don't lose very often. They very often don't lose at home. And I think for them, that was a bit of a wake-up call that, hey, you got to treat everybody seriously. I believe that they do, and they did. But they've got to start making sure that your quarterback to receiver combos and that your throws and everything like that are on time, that you judge distance well, because if you don't and you're put into a situation where you have to pass, it becomes difficult to move the football down the field. And I expect that will be one thing that they'll work on in practice. The other thing is that Tom Sargent does not like penalties. 122 yards in penalties, that's quite uncharacteristic of the Saskatoon Hilltops. And you can bet that they're going to make sure that they're well disciplined for the next game that's coming up against Calgary Colts.
So in the PFC, let's slide down the number 11 highway here a little bit and talk about, the Regina Thunder. They end up coming out and beating Calgary pretty handedly. What impressed you about their performance in that game?
The Regina Thunder, they do so many things well, and they're coached so well. Scott McCauley's fantastic. This is a team that, again, has had to retool a little bit at some positions. The one thing that the Regina Thunder do so well, they play well defensively, and they take care of the football. They come out with a big win in week 1, obviously, against the Edmonton Wildcats. I think they had something like 30 first downs in that game. They chew up clock. This is a tough, hard-nosed football team down in Regina. And there's a lot of determination after last year losing in that PFC final. I really believe that's a team with a chip on their shoulder. Absolutely. There's a feeling, I believe, of unfinished business down there, and they want to take care of it this time. I know that there's been a lot of work in the offseason, and I think that Regina Thunder team is going to be right there with it. That PFC Conference Championship is going to go through Saskatchewan one way or another, but boy, that September 26th matchup in Saskatoon, they'll face each other twice this year. Those are always good football games. I say everybody down in Regina and in Saskatoon, whenever it's Hilltops and Thunder, you are in for a game that is going to come down to the last play almost every time, and sometimes it goes into overtime. Those games are fun to watch, and I'm excited for when the Hilltops and the Thunder clash later on this season.
One of the players that really jumps off the stat sheet in that last game for the Regina Thunder as well, Peter Borsch. He rushed for 33 times that day. I think collectively he had 246 yards total between rushing and receiving.
Yeah, you know what? I watch him play, and I think I referred to this on a broadcast. He's kind of like a freight train with shoulder pads. He just runs. He absolutely is not afraid to take contact. You know what? He finds holes. He finds space. He's very agile, and he moves well with the football, and he can really turn on the jets. And when they play anybody, you've got to be able to him. He's a fantastic young football player. Built. He's got some muscle. He can catch and he can run the ball just as well. So they can use him kind of anywhere. You know what? He's absolutely a guy that if I were the Regina Thunder and I were really any team playing against him, you're going to have to key up on him. And Peter Borsch, if the Regina Thunder do get to a national championship and win it this year, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to help carry him there.
Well, and of course, we have to single him out. There's so many, impressive performances that came out of that Thunder game, but he practices with the Riders, right? He's with the Riders, so that's a name very familiar.
Go.
In fact, we're going to hear from him later on the show today in our junior football report.
There you go. and you know what's really interesting is for the Rams and the Hilltops, both of them, there's always a couple of guys. You're really kind of watching some future CFL football stars. Many of them are going to get invited to Rider Camp or other potential CFL camps, and that's also what makes the PFC so fun is you're kind of really seeing the stars of tomorrow today. Same up in U Sports with the Rams and the Huskies, but Peter Borsch is definitely a guy. He's got legs, and like I say, when he's coming at you, he's going to put his full weight of his body down to try and get through you. It's tough to bring him down, and I just love the way he plays and his passing for the game.
So how important is this next game for the Saskatoon Hilltops, understanding that they came off that heartbreaking loss at home?
Yeah. You know what? For the Saskatoon Hilltops, so they sit 1-1. They've still got a couple of games left in the regular season against the Regina Thunder. They got an Edmonton Huskies team also in front of them that's pretty good too. So if you're the Saskatoon Hilltops, you don't want to fall to 1-2. They're playing a Calgary Colts team that certainly is beatable, but a team that you're not going to easily dominate. So I think for the Saskatoon Hilltops, one, they cannot afford to take penalties. They especially can't afford to take penalties at key times, whether they're pass interference penalties on defense or on offense, on plays into the end zone. They cannot afford to do that. The other thing, as I mentioned, timing on receivers. They've got to make sure that Griffin Sanders and his receivers are ready to go and they're timed out well. And the third thing I would say, blocking and tackling. You know what? Darren Curry in that game with the Edmonton Wildcats, there were some plays where he was almost running right through a big crowd of blue and gold jerseys. They've got there were some good tackles that they made at some points, but I think that Tom Sargent is going to want his guys practicing fundamentals and blocking and tackling. When you have a chance to get a guy down, you want to get him down. You want him spinning off you, 2 or 3 or 4 times and getting down the field. They're going to have to play composed. They can't afford many mistakes, and they can't afford to put themselves in a situation where they're forced to pass the ball and move down the field real quickly. You don't want to be doing that too often if you can avoid it. They're going to have to play some pretty good football because that Calgary Colts team is going to be hungry. There's a program, I think, that also may be on the rise there. So that's going to be a fun game this weekend. But yeah, that's where I think the Hilltops kind of really need to work. Special teams, tackling and blocking, penalties, and linking up Griffin Sander with their receivers.
Well, Colson, I think we just scooped his 3 keys to the game before the broadcast, so we love that.
That did all the homework.
You heard it
for
here
you.
first. Yeah, well, there you go. Let's shift to Canada West for a little bit here, shall we? Because we're getting really, really close to that kicking off here for the Rams and, of course, the University of Saskatchewan Huskies. And I'm excited to see some preseason action finally getting underway. I mean, reigning Hardy Cup champions. They made it to the Vanier Cup last year in the U of S Huskies. And then the U of R Rams. I mean, come on. They got their first preseason game in Medicine Hat this weekend. What are you watching for in these exhibition games?
Oh boy, there's a lot of interesting storylines for both teams really coming into this season. So let's start with the Regina Rams, shall we? You got a guy, Noah Peltier, he's in his 5th year. I mean, this is a quarterback that, remember, played in a playoff game way back in 2022, right? So he's in his 5th year. They got a very experienced quarterback in him, but then they also have Owen Sieben, who played last year as well, played in that Hardy Cup, and number 17 shows that he can play as well. He's in his 4th year. So they kind of have what I call the good problem to have in football. You got 2 great quarterbacks. They're vets. They're pretty experienced. You're going to have some depth there. Mark McConkey will have some decisions to make on how he wants to handle that. But at quarterback, I think the Rams are going to be solid. Renzel Arenaza and Marshall Erickson, 2 fantastic, dynamic players. You want to see both of them obviously facing some injuries. Are they going to be back? I hope that they will be. And then you have some key players on defense that are going to be back. One guy that a lot are hoping for is Jacob Tkachuk. Played in the East-West Bowl. I think he actually might have gotten injured in that game, but we're going to see if he can come back. That Rams team is going to be good. They got a lot of players that are going to be returning. And then you look for the Saskatchewan Huskies. They lost a lot of players. I mean, they lost a few of them. So gone is Riker Frank. Gone is Daniel Weed. Gone is Derek Bobium on the offensive line. Rhett Vavra, Jaden Angle, Seth Hundaby. Those are some really key elements on offense that the Huskies lost last season. But they're going to be back with some guys that showed that they could play, some 2nd and 3rd year guys. So you're looking at Reese Cack in his 4th year, Reese McCormick, Charlie Parks, Nathan Goulet. You have Mason Grabowski, who caught a touchdown pass in the playoffs last year. He kind of sort of showed himself of what he could be. He's a big target. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ray Elgard. Tyrus Flory and Dawson Lenny are receivers that are going to come into their own. And then a lot of big storyline, obviously, around Anton Amador, right? The quarterback for the Saskatchewan Huskies last year, going down, fighting cancer. And then a lot of people hoping that he comes back as well. Huskies tweeted out on Instagram a picture of number 11 out there. So, a lot of people are pulling for him. I think the Saskatchewan Huskies are going to do some damage this year. Scott Flory is a great leader. He's a great coach. And more important, players love him, and he knows how to put a team together. And they don't have to all be 5th years. They can be 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year guys. Honestly, if I looked at Canada West right now, and I sort of had a coaches poll in front of me, they come out with that every year. I haven't seen it yet. I would say the Hardy Cup, the conference championship, is probably going to go through Saskatchewan somehow, either through Regina or through the Saskatchewan Huskies up in Saskatoon. Those are 2 programs that have been firing on all cylinders. They've got a lot of big pieces put together. They've got experience, and they've got some great coaches. So I think college football, when it gets started, is going to be fun. As you mentioned, the Rams got that preseason game coming up. Saskatchewan Huskies as well. And once they get rolling, those 2 teams, they'll face each other twice this year, and it's going to be exciting. But I expect both of them to be in the upper echelon of the Canada West standings this season, and I would expect that the Hardy Cup in some way or form is going to go through one of those 2 teams.
I find it interesting. We talk about PFC and then we talk about Canada West, and that I think a lot of people are with you, Matt, where they're predicting that, a lot of those finals are going to have to go through Saskatchewan one way or another. You look at the CFL with the Huskies and the Rams. I think there's 10 from, 10 alumni that are currently playing pro football at the CFL level. What is it about Saskatchewan and the talent that's being produced here right now? Is it because of all the dedicated coaches, volunteers? Is it the programs? And what are you seeing being involved at so many different levels?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at last year, it was the Hilltops that won the national championship at the PFC. You got the Huskies that got to the Vanier Cup, Huskies and Rams in the Hardy Cup. That was the Canada West Conference Championship. Of course, the Riders. So it was kind of an all Saskatchewan feast when it came to football championships last year, which was exciting for fans here to see. The pipeline is noticeably bigger for Saskatchewan football players over the last 2 or 3 years. I've absolutely seen it. You're seeing it with guys like Daniel Weed played for the Huskies, now making his mark with Saskatchewan Roughriders. You got the Sean Mims and players like that. I think what it is you have a level of dedication, and you have a level of experience, and you have a level of prowess, and you have a level of recruitment that is firing at its highest peak right now. You talk about, it's interesting because 10, 20 years ago, recruiting players was different, right? You didn't have Twitter, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Instagram. So when you wanted to scout players, it was, what video could you find from a high school game? What guys could you send over to whatever city to find players? It's changed the game a little bit. Technology has really changed recruiting, and the Saskatchewan teams, I know, have absolutely embraced it. Look at the Saskatoon Hilltops, finding guys from the United States to come up and play for them. I mean, when you look at how players are brought in, when you look at how they're developed, the facilities that they have, it's absolutely incredible. And I think you're seeing more and more players at their younger age, whether it's high school or when you get to the CGFL, they want to come to Saskatchewan because they see the success. And they say, I want to play there too. I want to go to Regina or Saskatoon or even to smaller high school programs like Moose Jaw, Prince Albert, because they see, this is kind of a pipeline. And once you get that going, that snowball's hard to stop. And that's why I think when you look around at a lot of the junior and college teams in Saskatchewan, and even some of these high school teams, you look at football Sask, I think you're sort of in an era right now where the province of Saskatchewan, they're churning out the best of the best when it comes to young football players, and they're sticking on CFL teams. They're getting those opportunities. It's wonderful to see. You're seeing investment, you're seeing fields, you're seeing even attendance at games. I mean, the Saskatchewan Huskies now getting up near 8, 9, 10,000 for some games. I mean, you're really seeing people come out. It's a testament to the volunteers, all the people that work behind the scenes, right down to those who bring out the padding and equipment for practice. It's really incredible, and it's paying off, and you're seeing Saskatchewan at the top of the heap when it comes to Canadian football.
Oh, Matt, I could sit here and ask you 1,000 more questions here, especially about CFL attendance numbers, but we might have to get you back on in the near future here to talk some CFL attendance numbers, because I know you track those incredibly well, but we are completely out of time here. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. We'll chat soon.